Hello, I hope everyone's doing well. I want to start today out a little differently. We're going to do an activity, and I want you to have something to write on. So this is going to be something that you'll just keep in your notes, not something you have to turn in, but I would love for you to pause me if you need to, and get a piece of paper and a pen or pencil, just something to take some notes on. And once you're ready, let's proceed. I want you to take a moment to close your eyes. Close your eyes and just listen to me. After you've closed your eyes, I want you to think. I want you to think of a bad memory, a memory that perhaps makes you sad, maybe angry, but stands out to you as an unpleasant time. And once that memory comes to you, I want you to pause me, and I want you to write down just a couple of words on your piece of paper that will signal to you what this memory is about. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit uncomfortable. I want you to live in that memory for just a minute. I want you to live in it. I want you to really think about it. And as you're doing that, I want you to pay very close attention to what you're feeling emotionally, and also what you're feeling physically. I want you to take about 60 seconds or so to do that. And I want you on that piece of paper to write down as many things as you can think of about how you feel, as many feeling words as you can think of, feeling emotionally and physically. So let's take 60 seconds now and let you do that. Pause me, take a few minutes, and then when you're ready, come back. Okay, you're back. We're going to be doing a lot of pausing today. So I hope that I haven't gotten you too uncomfortable. But just to help you release those feelings, here's what I want you to do. You're going to stand up and go walk around. You're going to pause me and go walk around. But when you do, I want you to walk somewhere. I want you to get up. This is important. Get up from the computer, walk around, go find a window and look out the window. And as you're looking out the window, I want you to take a deep breath in. And as you're breathing in, I want you to think about breathing in the fresh air, the fresh cleansing air. And then as you exhale, I want you to think about blowing out all of those negative feelings. So I want you to pause me. And when you pause me, I want you to get up, walk around for a minute, go to a window, look out, inhale, breathe in fresh air, breathe out all those bad feelings. Now pause me, go do that, and when you finish, come back. Okay, good. I hope that you've shaken all that off. Let's keep going. Now, be sure that you still have your note paper in front of you and your pencil. And we're going to do something else now. Now I want you to close your eyes again. But this time, I want you to think of a really good memory. Something that makes you happy, something that excites you maybe. Take just a minute to think of that memory. And when it comes to mind, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to write down just a couple of words on that piece of paper that signals to you what that memory is about. After you've done that, and pause me if you need to, after you've done that, I want you to do the same thing that you did earlier. I want you to pause me, and I want you to take a minute or so to really relive that memory. Relive it and think as much as you can about how you feel, and write down as many feeling words as you can about how you feel emotionally and how you feel physically. So pause me, take a minute or so to think about it and write all that down. Okay, now that you've finished, I hope that you can feel a difference in your body than when you finished thinking about the bad memory. But what I want you to do now is I want you to stand up. Stand up, I want you to shake it out, and I want you to take a really good deep breath in. We're going to take a deep breath in. And as we're doing that, I want you to think about inhaling all of those positive feelings. Full of positivity. Exhale, and let's blow out any negative thoughts. Inhale, breathe in positivity. Exhale, all the negativity. One more time. Breathe in the positivity. And exhale, breathe out the negative. Shake it out, just another minute. Now, you're probably wondering, why in the world did I have you think about a bad memory and then think about a good memory? The reason I did that is because I want to do a few things with you. This exercise helps me to get you to see a few things. The first thing I want you to know is that within 10 minutes here, I was able to take you from one side of the emotional spectrum to the other. So if you've really participated in this with me, you can see that we went from feeling really bad to just a few minutes later feeling really good. And the reason I want to do this with you is to show you that your feelings are a reaction. Your feelings are a reaction to your thoughts. Emotions are actually an involuntary response. It's a physiological response that's involuntary, and it is a reaction to what you're thinking. A lot of people don't know that or realize it, but what that tells us is that if we can take control of our thoughts, then we can control how we feel. This is a very important concept for you to grasp as we think about moving through design think and we try to learn how to have empathy. So thoughts drive our feelings. And with practice, everyone can learn to adjust their thoughts to adjust the way they feel. Now, science tells us that we are much more creative when we're in a positive mood. It also tells us that we're better leaders, we're more productive, and there's many more higher performance measurements that we could go through that result when we're in a better mood. Now, a lot of people will say, well, I'm just in a bad mood. Well, this proves to you that if you're in a bad mood, it's a choice. You choose to think thoughts that trigger bad emotions. You can choose to stop thinking about that and think about different things. Now, I wouldn't suggest that you do this all the time. This is just to prove to a point to you that emotions are a reaction to your thoughts. So internalize that for a few minutes. And I want to move on and tell you the second thing that was really important about the exercise that I walked you through. The first thing was you realize emotions are a reaction to your thoughts. The second thing that I wanted you to do as you were sitting there living in the moment and writing down your feelings is I was teaching you how to be present. Now, we hear a lot of people talk about be present, live in the moment. But for entrepreneurs, that's a lot easier said than done. Entrepreneurs tend to live in the future because we're always trying to anticipate what's coming so that we can react better. And we're also trying to always look for opportunities. But we have to take time on a daily basis to live in the present. Now, I'm not sure how many of you ever take time to sit down and say, how am I really feeling about this? Like really feeling emotionally, and write it down. How many times during the day do you take stock of, wow, this really made me uncomfortable, uh, really made me feel antsy, like I feel like I have butterflies in my stomach. Most people don't do that. We really haven't been trained to be mindful and to stop and to really be present. So in order to write down the feelings you were having, you had to be present. You had to think about the memory, and you had to think about how you were feeling right now, especially physically when we start to write those things down. So it's really important for all of you to learn to take time to be present and take stock of those feelings. We'll talk about why in a few minutes. So, one, I wanted you to know your emotions are a reaction to thoughts. And two, I wanted you to learn how it feels to be present and to understand the importance of presence. The third thing that I wanted you to take away from this is that because emotions are a reaction and they are a physiological response, they come in cycles. It's a cycle, and every emotion that you have has a beginning, it has a middle, and it has an end. The beginning of the emotion is the trigger. Your thought, I thought of a happy memory, it triggered a good feeling. That will manifest as a cognitive thought. I cognitively feel happy. It will also manifest physically. Emotions reside within the body. Let me say that again. Emotions reside within the body. So the more present that you are, the more that you will begin to realize that not only do you think about your emotions, but you truly feel them. You feel them in your body. For example, you've heard people say, oh, I've got a stress headache. That's because a lot of stress and anxiety lives in the neck and it lives in the head. That's where it lives. A lot of anger lives in the shoulders, in the upper body. You tense up when you're angry. You see your brows furl when you're angry. Emotions live in the body. Sadness resides in the chest. We've heard people say a lot that like, oh, I've got a broken heart. It's because sadness resides here. There are other responses that you can have to excitement. Perhaps you get chill bumps. That is a physiological response to the emotion in your feeling. Now, as you're feeling this, every pun intended, that's the middle of the cycle, the middle. But emotions also need an end. They need to be able to finish the cycle and move on. That's really easy when we start thinking about positive emotions. Let's just say, oh my gosh, I ran into that person that I really have a crush on, and that person talked to me. That person was like, wanted my number. So I talked to that person, I give him my number. Inside, I am screaming. I am screaming. My body is like tingling, and I'm smiling, and I am feeling, whew, great. Okay, well, I'm not going to let all that out and let that emotion complete in front of that person, because if I do, then I'm like an idiot, right? So I'm going to wait, and I'm going to maybe go into the bathroom and be like, ah, and let it all out as a scream. Or I'm going to call my best friend and go like, oh my gosh, like this person really got my number. And I'm going to finish that emotion and let it out, that scream. It's pretty easy to do when it's a positive emotion. However, lots of times we don't do that when it is something that is a less pleasant emotion. We tend to, and culture has taught us this, we tend to try to stuff those feelings down. And so if I'm sad, it's like, I have to suck it up. I can't cry. I must be strong. I must keep going. Or if I'm really angry, what if I'm really frustrated? I felt like something was really unfair, but I'm in a position where I'm at work and I'm like, if I'm afraid if I say something, then like I might get fired or there may be retaliation, or maybe it's just not the proper social setting to display that. What happens is we push them down. Society tells us that we're not supposed to complain. We're not supposed to show anger. It's not really acceptable. So we tend to stop and like push them down. When we do that, we don't let those emotions finish the cycle. Now, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking to you about sounds really psychological. I'm sure it does, but I know that most of you who are in this class are getting a management degree. And management is just psychology in a business setting. That's it. So you need to understand the things I'm telling you because we need to understand them for the entrepreneurial process, but we'll also need to understand them to be great leaders and managers. And a lot of what I'm saying is, although this may sound very like hokey to some of you or very outside your comfort zone to think about emotions and feelings, and I'm supposed they have a beginning, a middle, and an end, there's really a very scientific component to this. Remember, I've told you, emotions are a physiological response. They're involuntary. You're going to feel them. They're going to happen. There's a cycle. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. Moving on with a little bit in science, we know from physics and that there's energy in the world. There is no new energy is created and no energy is depleted. Energy only changes forms and shapes and moves. Well, when your body has a physiological response and an emotion occurs, that is energy. Energy has been moved into your body to create the feelings that go along with this. When we finish the complete emotion cycle, the beginning, the middle, and the end, that energy is able to move on and to go on to the next thing it needs to be involved with. However, when we push those emotions down, such as in anger, sadness, frustration, then we fool ourselves into thinking that it's done, but it's not. You see, that energy has nowhere to go. This emotion cycle has to finish. So that energy's got to work its way out somehow. If you choose to not cry, or not scream in frustration or anger or vent, if you choose not to do that and you continue to push those bad feelings down, then something bad's going to happen. And what is going to occur is that energy, that bad energy, is going to come out of your body in the form of either sickness or an injury. And we know this to be true. Now, with a lot of the coaching clients that I work with, I have a lot of them that like to push these down. And I have one of my favorite terms and quotes that I use with them is like, your body keeps score and your body will win every time. An example of this, I was working with a really high-level bank executive, really high level, and this guy had a lot of things going on in his life, some things that were really stressful, leading up to some big decisions that he had to make, and it would have stressed out anyone. It would be really normal for him to feel confusion, frustration, fear, not knowing which decision to make, fear of not making the right decision. There was a lot going on. And so when I sat down to have lunch with him, I sat there with him. He was cool as a cucumber. He was like, "Yeah, Gina, yeah, things are going well. Yeah, I've been thinking through some things and everything's going well." And I was like, "No, actually, things aren't going well. And the fact that you're acting like this means things are going even worse than I thought. Because that tells me that you're pushing all of your emotions down and you're acting like they don't exist. And I promise you that it's going to catch up with you. You're going to keep pushing them down and pushing them down until you make yourself sick." And this person is an athlete, avid runner. I said, "Or it's going to manifest in an injury, but that energy has got to come out." because you keep pushing it down and you keep pushing it down. And I promise you, the body keeps score, and the body always wins. So why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because you have to learn how to complete the emotion cycle. You have to learn how to feel the emotion and then end the emotion and let it move on. I'm sure that there's been times in your life, especially during COVID and during this pandemic, where you feel stuck. You feel exhausted, probably a burnout. I think that's pretty normal for most of us. When you're feeling exhaustion or when you're feeling burnout, what that means is you're stuck in the middle cycle of an emotion. I like to picture the emotion cycle as like a tunnel. So it's triggered, the beginning happens, and then you enter into a tunnel. And as you're going through that tunnel, that is the middle part of the emotion cycle. That's when you're actually feeling everything. And then the light at the end of the tunnel, and when it exits, is when the emotion finishes out the cycle. If you are feeling burnout, stuck, frustration, find yourself withdrawing, depressed, that's telling me that you're stuck in the tunnel. And you need to find a way to feel your emotions and to release them. It will really help you feel a lot better. This is why when we were doing the exercise at the beginning of this session, that after you talked about the bad emotion, I had you get up and walk around. One of the best ways to release emotions is physical activity. Just take a walk. Another way to help you release emotions is breathing exercises. That's why I had you inhale and visualize breathing in positive, exhale. Visualize breathing out the negative. These are really good ways to do it. Stand up and just shake it out. Like, I've got to get rid of it. I've got to physically do something to release that energy. So some important things we've been talking about right now. One, emotions are involuntary reactions to your thoughts. That means you can control your thoughts, you can control your feelings. The second thing that's really important that you need to understand about this is that you have to be present in order to truly know what you're feeling. You have to stop and reflect and think about it, acknowledge it. The third thing is to know that the emotional response is a cycle. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And it is really important that you are able to, not necessarily in the moment, but at some point, able to finish out the emotion cycle to release that energy so that you can protect your well-being. The next thing that I want to talk to you about in this exercise is I want you to look down at your piece of paper. I want you to notice how many things that you were able to write down about the way you were feeling. How many feeling words do you know did you put? This is very interesting. You see, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of words to describe feelings. Hundreds of them. A study was done a few years back, and there was about 15,000 respondents. And they asked them to go through an exercise similar to what you were doing, and to write down feeling words, as many as they could think of, good feeling words and bad feeling words. And it amazes me that the mean number of feeling words that people can write is 3. 3 feeling words. And these usually revolve something around happy, mad, and sad. Happy, mad, and sad. It's crazy. Look at what you wrote down. What were you able, in the moment that you were being present and thinking about it, how well were you able to describe your feelings? So 4 very important takeaways from the exercise. Thoughts lead to feelings. Feelings are involuntary reactions to our thoughts. We can control our thoughts. We can control our feelings. Second, learn to be present. Learn to acknowledge and feel what's going on with you. Third thing is, emotions go through a cycle. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's important for you to learn how to move all of your emotions through the cycle. The fourth thing is you need to be able to increase your, let's just say, your feelings vocabulary so that you can better describe feelings. You can be more accurate. Now, the reason that I went through all of this with you is a reaction to something that I've been struggling with. For the past few years, I've asked you all to make an observation. Use your entrepreneurial awareness to make an observation. And then I ask you to now identify the real problem. And I've said, and the real problem always revolves around the way it makes people feel. And you all have a very hard time doing that. And I've gone through this for several years now, and it's kind of frustrated me. And I'm like, why do they have such a hard time peeling back the layers of the onion and talking about the way that this would make people feel? Why is that so hard? And it was one of those moments where, like, have you ever been walking around the house and like you're looking for your keys everywhere, but they're in your hand? It was one of those moments for me. Or you're looking for your sunglasses everywhere and they're on your head, and you're like, oh my God, like, this was one of those moments for me. Because I thought about it and I thought about it, I'm like, why do they have so much trouble with this? I tell them to have empathy, put themselves in the other person's shoes. That's all I'm asking them to do. And the sunglasses that was on my head was that, like, empathy is a learned skill. They can learn it. I never taught you how. I've never truly gone through the steps of how to have empathy. Duh. So today I'm taking a step back to teach you some skills on how to have empathy. Things that you can do and things that you can practice to get better at it. Now, empathy is the number one job skill of your career. It's going to be the number one job skill for your entire career, maybe from here on out. It's the number one job skill of being a successful entrepreneur, of being a successful innovator, leader, manager, team member, spouse, friend, parent. It is that important. And I realized we haven't taught you how. We just tell you to do it, but we've never given you any skills. So the reason that I had you go through everything that we just did with thinking about a bad feeling, thinking about a good feeling, is to help you understand emotions better. Empathy is about being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes so that you can understand how they're feeling. In order to do that, you have to be able to understand yourself first. You need to know your emotional landscape before you can really do a good job of diagnosing someone else's. And the way that we get to know our emotional landscape is, first of all, by increasing our feeling vocabulary. If the mean number of words that people can write down to describe their feelings is 3, happy, mad, sad, then how effectively are we really describing the way we feel? We're not. You know, there's a big difference in disappointment and anger. Now, if we were in person, I'd say, tell me, what is the difference in disappointment and anger? And you know, most people can't tell me the difference. Define disappointment without using another feeling word. Define anger without using another feeling word. They're two very different things. You see, disappointment is about unmet expectation. I am disappointed because I expected something to happen and it didn't. That's disappointment. Now, disappointment can lead to me being sad. Disappointment can lead to me being angry. Disappointment can lead to me being frustrated. It can lead to a lot of things. But the feeling it leads to is not the same thing as disappointment. Anger revolves more around a perceived injustice. I don't like something that happened. That was unjust, and that makes me angry. Now, if I was disappointed and it led to anger, then that means like that unmet expectation disappointed me. But that unmet expectation was unjust. So that made me angry. Two different things. And so I task you with going to the internet and just Googling feeling words and definitions and start expanding your feeling vocabulary. The better your feeling vocabulary is, the better that you can have and practice empathy, because the better you can describe feelings. If you're trying to solve a real problem and you're trying to solve a problem of anger, but it's really a problem of disappointment, you can see how your solution might not be effective. So this is really important. So this is the first thing that I task you with. The second thing that I task you with is really being present. And the more that you practice being present and understanding your feelings and the way that you react to your thoughts, the more that you can start to control those thoughts and control your feelings. This is really important because that helps you to also be able to control your response to other people. The example I like to talk about the most is, trying to respond to my daughter right now. She's 12, she's a preteen, and she's sassy. She's extremely sassy. We all went through that, it's just the age, and she's really figuring out who she is. She's learning to exert power. She's just a typical middle schooler, and middle school's hard, guys. I don't think any of us would go back for $1 million, but because I can have empathy, I can put myself in her shoes and just describe to you some things she's going through. Because I know my emotional landscape and I know some of my triggers. When she starts to be sassy with me, if I start to feel myself get angry, that means, ooh, like my thoughts are she's being disrespectful. Now, that's a valid thought. She is. But is thinking, ooh, she's disrespectful and getting angry going to be productive in that scenario? Probably not. So I take a minute to go, be present. Ooh, I feel myself getting angry. However, I feel like a better thing for me to do would be to okay, she's responding this way because she's a middle schooler. And middle schoolers really just need help navigating the world. So let me change this from she's been disrespectful to now I'm thinking she just needs help navigating the situation. And when I do that, I feel myself relax. Okay. And rather than responding with, listen, miss, don't be disrespectful to me, I can now respond with, hey, I'm hearing some frustration and some sassiness come out. What's really going on? What are you really trying to figure out here? And I can diffuse the situation. Now, in order to do that, I have to be mindful. And mindful is defined as emotionally detached presence. I can be present, acknowledge what I'm feeling. I can put those feelings aside, make it like my little imaginary friend over here. I can put those feelings aside because I still want to be angry, right? She still doesn't need to be disrespectful, but I can put that aside right now to say, ooh, wonder what she's really feeling. So mindful, emotionally detached presence so that I can put myself in her shoes and have real empathy. Now, this is something that takes practice, a lot of practice. To get there, you really have to start acknowledging how you feel and being present and starting to understand your responses to your thoughts. Take time to do that. Start really paying attention. Once you get, a really good idea of what you feel like your emotional landscape is, then you can start practicing, okay, I want to control my thoughts. I don't want to respond in an angry way. I want to say, okay, anger was my first thought, but let me take a breath, count to 10. I'm sure you were told that when you're a child, count to 10 before you respond. The reason you do that is because that allows you a moment to be mindful. Okay, let me put that aside. And now let me really have empathy. Let me really see what's going on. When I do that, I can prevent myself from projecting my feelings onto that person and assuming they feel how I feel, because that's very rarely true. And I can also do a better job of diagnosing really what is going on with them and what they're feeling. And these are some really great ways to start learning empathy. Get that emotional landscape yours, get a really good handle on it, which gets back to self-awareness. Get a really good handle on what that is. Increase your feeling word vocabulary so that you can better describe things. Practice being present so that you can take stock of your thoughts and your feelings. And then start trying to be mindful, having that emotional detachment in the moment so that you can have empathy, so that you can really start to put yourself in that person's shoes in a much more effective manner. I just gave you like a quick and dirty primer on how to start practicing empathy. And my huge apologies for walking around with my sunglasses on my head and looking for them, because and just thinking, I tell them to have empathy, they should just go do it. Here's some really good steps for you to truly start practicing empathy. Now, I can't stress to you guys enough how important this is. As I've told you before, this is the number one skill you need to be successful in life. There's been so many times in your life, in my life, when I'm like, I just want them to understand me. I just want them to hear me. I just want to be seen. What's happening when I say that is I am screaming, I want you to have empathy. And whoever I'm with is not. If anybody's ever said it to you, if they've ever said, I just want you to understand me. I just want you to hear me. Don't you hear me? Don't you understand me? What they're screaming at you is, why can't you have empathy? It's so important in your personal relationships. It's equally important in your professional relationships. So start now, start. And our apologies if the educational system is not caught up with this to start teaching you this much sooner. I will keep following up with different tips for you. If you'll notice on the GinaSimpson.online website, I've added a space there where I'm starting to put resources. And I'm going to start putting different tips and things here to help you learn some of the skills that you're really going to need, especially those that revolve around developing empathy and the empathy skills and getting really good at them. Now, I'm telling you all of this because I want to take you back now for a moment I'm going to share screen with you, the design think process that we talked about in the last video. And that screen should be popping up for you here. And in design think, the first step here is, oops, my pen battery is low. I'm going to have to charge it. The first step here is to feel empathy. And we just went through a lot on how to really, really get much better at the empathy part. Empathy here is where we start to put ourselves in the other person's shoes so that we can truly define the problem. And the real problem is what we're going to try to solve. And as we develop solutions and start being creative. So have empathy, define the problem, using that empathy. And now let's be creative. You've learned many ways on how to be creative. And let's start to ideate and think of solutions to solve the problem. Once we go through those solutions, then we need to evaluate those solutions to see which ones are really entrepreneurial opportunities. Are they desirable? Are they viable? Are they feasible? Do they have value? Can we make money off of those? Once we get through this process, then we're ready to move on to developing a prototype. A prototype, also known as an MVP, you'll hear us say that sometimes too. MVP stands for minimum viable product. What we want to do is to develop a smaller version of the product that we want to take to market. Don't go all out. So for example, let's just say you want to develop an app. Most people don't realize that to develop a quality app that's user-friendly, that is on the scale of the ones that you're used to using on your phone, costs probably around $50,000 on the low end, at a minimum about $50,000. Well, we obviously don't want to throw down $50,000 in the beginning. So what we need to do is to develop a prototype or an MVP. And this might look like a website that has some of the features that the app would have. And what we want to do is develop that website for much cheaper, and then we want to test it. We want to take it to a segment of our target market, and we want them to use it. We want them to use it, and we want them to give us feedback. And when we hear that feedback, we want to take the feedback, not get defensive. If we ever get defensive, then we are not going to make the proper changes to the prototype. We're not going to make a successful product. So we want to take their criticism and internalize it and be thankful for it. And we want to incorporate the things that they've said into the prototype iteration. We want to iterate and improve the prototype. Once we've made those changes, then we want to take it back and test it again. And we want to keep making iterations until we feel like we get to a point that the product is truly ready to go to market and that it is truly what the market is demanding, not what we think is cool. Remember, Timmons tells us that entrepreneurship is market driven. So this is how we get to what the market really wants. In the customer discovery process, like you learn in 386, where we start to ask questions here is the customer validation. We make a hypothesis, our value proposition and who we think our customer segments are, and we go do interviews. That's customer validation. After we do that, we would make the prototype, and we'll take the prototype to our customer segment and test it. This is called product validation. So we want to do this several times. I wish we weren't living in COVID times, because I have a really good friend named Chris Elmore, and Chris is a unicorn. And if you do not know what a unicorn is an entrepreneur that starts a business from scratch that is now worth over $1 billion. That's right, with a B. And Chris is a unicorn. He and his partners have started a company which is now worth over $1 billion. And he tells a great story that is a great example of the design process. And I like to bring him to class as a guest speaker, but it's hard right now with travel. He would have to drive or fly in. He usually flies in. But he talks about when they developed their product, and they have a software product, that the first time they took it to market, their customers hated it. He said, and they complained and they complained. They complained, I hate this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, it doesn't do this. They didn't quit. They didn't get defensive, first of all, and be like, and second of all, they didn't feel defeated. They didn't quit. They didn't feel like failures. Instead, what they did was took the criticism and they made changes to their prototype. And they said, and he says the first time we took it to market, level of complaints was up here. He said we took it back, made changes, took it back to market, and we still had a lot of complaints. However, the level of complaints was lower. The level of, I hate this, it doesn't do this, it doesn't do that. It's not what I need. This is not what I need. So, second round of complaints, took it back and changed it and took it back to market and still got complaints again. but not as many. So they knew they were on the right track. And they did this 3 times until they got to the point where it leveled out. It leveled out and they weren't really getting complaints anymore. Instead, what happened is instead of customers saying, oh, I hate this, it doesn't do this, they started saying things like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? And when you hear the conversation change from, I hate this, it's not doing what I need to, wouldn't it be cool if you're listening between the lines, what you hear is, ooh, my product is satisfying their basic needs. I'm in. And now they're telling me cool ways to bring added value. So this is a really good example of why you should go through the design think process. This is why you should develop your prototype, test it, take your feedback, internalize it and love it. You love every complaint that you get, and then bring it back, make changes, make those changes and keep doing it until your product gets better and better and better. And the level of complaints or criticism that you get levels out. And the conversation changes to, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if? I hope that you all really understand the importance of the design think process. It's going to be super important in your careers. It's a very well-established system for developing innovations, developing products within the corporate world, and also within entrepreneurship. You are going to put all of this into practice in your final project. So be sure that you understand it and internalize this. If you have any questions, you need to ask me. There are a couple of other slides that are up that I would love for you to look at prior to your final exam. Not final exam, your next test. There's one that is creation to implementation, and that involves just a summary of looking at what happens from the moment that we create till we actually implement a product. And the last one that I want you to look at is about crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. And the basic premise behind crowdsourcing and crowdfunding is that the more input you get from more people, the more valuable the information will be. And while it's harder to manage a lot of little pieces of information from a lot of people than it is big pieces of information from a few people, the information that you will get from crowdsourced problem solving will be better and more beneficial. It's also easier to raise funds from crowdfunding. It's easier to get a little bit of money from a lot of people than it is to get a lot of money from a few people. If you came to me and asked me to give you $5 to invest in your business, I would do that and not think a thing about it. I would do it and feel good that I helped you. You'd feel good that I helped you. And you could move on and ask the next person for $5. Nothing happened there except a good exchange and some goodwill. And you didn't have to give me any equity. You didn't have to do anything for that. The more people that you can get to do that, you can raise a lot of money. That's just what Kickstarter's about. That is the premise behind it. And just look those over. If you have any questions, let me know. Today's been a really fun day. I've enjoyed doing all this with you. I hope you keep that piece of paper that you wrote your notes on. Keep it. You may be at a point right now where you don't understand the importance of everything I taught you today, but you will. I promise. 5 years into your career, you're going to go, oh yeah, Gina told me about empathy and about feelings and thoughts and how to truly, practice empathy. And I want you to be able to go back to this exercise today and to remind yourself some of the skills that you need to practice empathy. It's going to be super important. I hope you have enjoyed today. I have enjoyed sharing with you. If you have any questions, email me, and look forward to seeing your final projects. I will give you some further information on the website on what I'm looking for. Have a great day. See ya.